Thank you for joining in. I was really looking forward to today's conversation on adaptive talent development in an era of change. My name is Mahua Mukherjee. We are today having this conversation on the Star in Me's LinkedIn challenge. I'm one of the co-founders of the Star in Me. So briefly, before we get started and introduce today's guests and get started with today's conversation, I wanted to talk about a line of who we are, what we do. The Star in Me is a talent development platform for global organizations. We partner with our enterprise clients to solve business performance problems through the right talent development interventions and solutions, which range from effective leadership development at all the career levels, employee engagement, and culture building. And we all know whoever has joined the conversations today, and it is imperative and all-time high on how the importance of talent development is kind of so much picked up in the recent years, and it's because of the rapidly changing business environment. Um, doesn't matter how small or big is the organization, the agility and the adaptiveness that we need in terms of building our talent, which is the core human resource and human capital for every business, is very less to say that it's the core, and it needs a lot of nurturing to ensure that organizations remain competitive and ahead of the curve. All right, setting the context, let's jump into our today's conversation, introducing our today's guests, Aditi and Purva. Thanks a lot for giving your time today and welcome you for today's conversation and being part of the Star in Me channel. So, Aditi Mukherjee is Chief People Officer at NCDEX. She's also an ICF certified coach, a recognized thought leader in the industry. She's an advisory council member at NHRD and IIM Calcutta. I think she's an alumni, so it's great to be a council member in NHRD and being part of your alum community and a certified corporate director. Aditi brings a wealth of experience and insights into the dynamics of talent management in changing times. Thank you, Aditi, and welcome again.
Thank you.
Okay, now I would love to introduce Purva. Purva is Chief People Officer at Biconomy. She's on the industry boards of multiple management institutes and is an established public speaker at various international platforms, including TEDx. Her vision is to cultivate workplaces where everyone thrives. And I think today we'll discuss a lot of it, Purva. And she has experience across multiple industries, starting with IT, banking, edtech, and new age startups, including Web3. So, really, really excited, Purva. Thank you for joining in today.
Thanks a lot, Mawa. Really looking forward to the session and interacting with everybody.
Awesome. All right. So I think we have a good quorum of audience who is listening in. So Purva, the first question is to you. Given your range of experience across industries, from traditional services and large corporations that you have been to startup ecosystem in edtech, and now you're nurturing talent in your organization where you have Web3 developers, right? So how does your role as head of people or culture, who has to frame everything in your organization, what has changed through the different industries that you've worked with?
Pretty interesting question. And this industry is all about building the future of web, right? So, if I was to actually summarize in a nutshell, my journey is about adapting fast, embracing the chaos myself, and
Mm-hmm.
also being at the forefront of the next big thing, because that's exactly what, the company that I'm associated with is doing. So, what
Right.
does it mean for us, right? Here are the few things that I'm going to talk about. The first one is tech evolution mastery. So, from big corporates to edtech, and now the frontier of Web3, from HR perspective and from talent perspective, it requires quick move in a hyper evolving tech scene. And therefore,
Right.
the HR strategies have to be super agile.
Mm-hmm.
Talent shape shifting, like we say, right? In Web3, it's not just about skills, it's about being a total ninja. We look
Yeah.
for adaptability, curiosity, a knack for navigating the ever changing decentralized
Right.
landscape.
Mm.
So innovation as culture has to be also, kind of is also about speed now. It's about encouraging experiments. It's about embracing failures as stepping stones and valuing ideas from everywhere. It's about building that culture of entrepreneurship. So you're creating entrepreneurs in your company.
Right.
um, and other than that, there are a few other things which all of us have dealt with. We all know that remote is the new norm. And
Right.
in this team that I'm leading right now, it's a completely remote setup. So Web3, like no other, kind of space, embraces global talents with open arms. There are a lot of flexible policies related to, kind of decentralization, etc., that makes everybody feel a part of the team, and that's the new normal. And
Got it.
decentralization decisions rule. So
Mm.
that's essentially a nutshell of, what it feels like to be leading a company which is at the core of this cutting edge technology that everybody is trying to build.
Absolutely. I think there are certain interesting aspects that you've talked about, and especially it becomes so much more complex being in global setups and remote and 100% remote, right? I mean, that kind of creates so much of autonomy in the system and in talent and the extent of ownership that every individual has to kind of build in, and that's a very difficult behavioral trait to have and trust and build. Right, and we will kind of dive in more into, especially in your setup of multi-generational talent that you are handling. Possibly will be some interesting aspects we'll talk. But thanks for setting it up, Purva. Aditi, moving on to you, you are in fact in a very different industry,
Mhm.
and your journey has been super interesting, cutting across from industries from NIIT to
Mm,
PwC consulting to the conglomerate like being in part of Tata Steel and now NCDEX,
mm,
where you deal with very regulated agri commodity exchange, right? It's like absolutely diverse from the previous conversation that we have had with Purva.
right.
So it's totally it's opposite ends. So how was your journey evolved as head of talent across these industries, and how do you see the pace of change impacting talent development in your current super regulated industry?
Right. So yeah, my profile is a complete contrast to
Yeah.
Purva, and so is my sector. So see, technology to global consulting to a manufacturing, and now in MII, we are in MII, which is Market Infrastructure Institution sector.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the sectoral exposure of my journey has been diverse, and of course, it has progressed over the years. One of the things that I realized as I moved from one sector to the other, um, it's an immense amount of unlearning that is required, and constant adaptation to the different business context. And this is one thing that I wanted to kind of, when I look back, I think back, I see the journey for a head of talent in multiple sectors, such as what I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of constant adaptation to business challenges. For example, a manufacturing requirement would have a different kind of a talent strategy. You will have people who are blue collar, you will have white collar employees, you have service personnel, you have women in mines, you have, or for that matter, in office spaces. So
Correct.
that is a different kind of talent that you are dealing with. On the contrary, you have a consulting firm where you have a lot of knowledge workers, or people who have highly qualified backgrounds, and
Mm-hmm.
like NIT, it is from an education sector. Again, the demography of the population is young, mobile. A lot of movement within NIT group. So one of the things that with the current organization that I can say, the pace of change which has influenced the talent landscape in
Mm-hmm.
our sector or MII sectors, largely in areas of regulatory.
Yeah.
All of you would be aware that from the various regulators, there are a lot of government policies that are influencing the way we are dealing with talent. Of course, there's a huge focus on technology, and the when I say technology, I just don't mean about limited to maybe digitization or automation. I'm talking about cutting edge technology in the way we do our trading
Business.
platforms,
Yeah.
our e-warehousing, our repositories, the whole gamut of the quality assessments that we are doing with our physical
Yeah.
products. Then we have the cybersecurity measures with the growing concerns that are happening around in the cybersecurity area
Yeah.
and the data privacy laws which are changing. That also has an impact on the way we hire talent, the way we nurture talent, and the
Yeah.
way we groom them
Mm-hmm.
because for us in our kind of an environment risk intelligent culture is extremely important, and that's the kind of culture that we want to we build in our company. That aside, a lot of because of the regulatory changes, the influence that the rather the people have to go in the field, talk to market participants,
Mm-hmm.
be in the physical market as well as in the as well as dealing with institutional players. So what I'm trying to say, the internal mobility of the skills that are required is extremely we have to have fungibility of skills. So one of the
Correct.
things that we have to constantly do is ensure that there is high amount of internal mobility between departments. Of course, we have a strict Chinese wall policy, which where you cannot move from one department to the other, especially regulatory to
Yeah.
non-regulatory.
Yeah.
But saying this, that the focus has largely been on nurturing talent. And one important aspect of my sector is because of the very concentrated talent that is available in the market, we have no option but to develop our talent in house. And
Correct.
that's one of the
Mm.
things I wanted to kind of bring in another perspective to what we are doing. I mean, very
Yeah.
contrary to what Purva's said, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, yes. And yeah,
Yeah.
and can understand the entire in-house development that is needed because being so niche, I mean, absolutely niche in terms of the breadth of the industry that we can think of, where you come from, and unlearning, as you mentioned, possibly has been a great asset for you as you moved across industries, and for every one of us being here, understanding also we also have to move as the new technologies evolve and how unlearning has to be such a core component of as we evolve as leaders and grow as leaders and move across industries. So thank you for setting it up. Next question is for both of you. Purva, you can get started, and then Aditi, you can follow on. My next question would be: what are some key trends and emerging best practices in talent development that you have observed, or in case you have implemented in your respective organization? If you could just pick up one of it as an example and share.
Sure. So it's pretty interesting that we've got Aditi and myself, and we are representing two very different
Yeah,
groups, and
yeah,
that's why that makes learning even more enriching, right? I mean,
yeah.
great learning from each other. See, in terms of Web3 startups, talent development isn't just about keeping up, okay? It's about pioneering the future of decentralized innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So efforts are very different to the traditional, kind of company efforts that I've seen so far. In fact, we speak about unlearning. I had to unlearn everything that I knew till now to be able to, kind of set up the new practices that were needed for these Gen Zs who are building codes, who are building the web, right, of future. So I
Yeah.
think if I was to just highlight one thing which really works for the groups that I represent would be community driven development challenges because it's like open source. These folks learn very differently. I think they are so motivated in what they are building and they are so clear about, how they want to reach there that the whole platform about engaging them in a community driven development challenge that
Mm-hmm.
fosters a sense of belonging and it taps into
Yeah.
their collective intelligence of the entire Web3 ecosystem, right? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing which is very different from what I've seen in the past. So I would love to hear Aditi's thoughts on
Yeah.
her world. Yes, right.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Purva, for your perspective. in our kind of environment, one of the things that has really worked for us is we have been able to create a complete, and I'm going to be really, really micro on this and share something as a good practice, which has also been recognized by the industry. Um, One of the things that we have been able to establish it for the last 2 years now is the whole academy framework of people development, which is very focused on capability uh, uh, across managerial cadres and categories and based on job roles. Um,
Mhm.
and that has worked for us because, as I mentioned to you, that my sector is, or rather, our organization focuses on a lot of talent development, and of course, with the limited of talent within just 4 or 5 stock exchanges that are there in India, you can't do much with what you have, of course. But that's why we have focused a lot on the academy framework, and we have been able to build and identify what are the necessary and the critical skills, and what are the future skills that are required for to manage the talent. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight, like Purva's organization is 100% offsite. Work
Yeah.
from home,
Remote.
remote. We had 100% on-site working, which which we moved to drive from 100% remote on-site to today we are doing a blended working model, which is itself extreme. I think one of the very different working model that are there in India, because in my sector, that is, I think that is why we have been able to kind of blend with the blended working model. The academy framework of people development works
Hmm.
as we are trying to build in into that. So
Got
that's what I wanted
it.
to share.
Nice, nice.
Aditi,
Yeah.
I can feel for whatever you said because I was representing banking for a very long time before COVID. So it was 100% work and 100% office. So yeah, I get it totally. So I think there's just one other perspective that I would like to add, Mahua,
Sure.
to your point, right? I think two things which maybe the traditional Web 2 setups can also pick from Web 3. I think that's an article that I shared earlier as well, would be how the whole DAO powered learning governance. When I say DAO, it means decentralized autonomous organizations. So Web3 is all about you know giving everybody a role in decision making. So
Hmm.
I see a lot of talent development frameworks that we're trying to build here, where the
Hmm.
decision making itself is for the learning initiatives is being you know driven with the employees. And
Hmm.
when that gets done, I think the whole acceptance to the frameworks, etc., becomes a lot easier. So I think that's one best practice that I really thought was something that I could have picked had I known this earlier in my previous roles.
Mhm.
And the other one would also be how to leverage non-fungible tokens, which can be leveraged as verifiable credentials for skills acquired, providing
Correct.
decentralized and
Correct.
secure method. So these
Correct.
would be the two that I would urge the audience, listening in to just experiment a little bit and read more about it because I think this is probably going to be the future.
Yeah, yeah. No, the good you brought the conversation on the non-fungible token, and the way the possibly the future of learning is going to happen, starting from the people who start building content to the way
Yeah,
it gets disseminated to the learners, and the feedback loop kind of closes in. Definitely, it's going to be. But I mean, with my understanding and the little work that we have done at Star and Me, a lot of this works amazingly well for predominantly technology and
yeah, that's
functional skills, right? So I mean, it's kind of very, very dominant when you talk about things that you learn on the go, and it's kind of evolving. There is a subtle difference from when we think about capability building, which was not human centered for behavioral,
yeah,
for
that's true.
leadership and others. Yeah, it's, and that also I kind of always feel there's so much of contrast in the way you learn and how you learn.
Yeah,
Possibly the individual learning that you can do through a lot of MOOC platforms, on your own, on your silo, kind also needs to be broken when you're trying to do a learning for a lot of behavioral and leadership where you actually need to interact with another human. I mean, the
Oh,
mode
that's
of
true.
engagement might be different, but then you still need another human feedback to even know how you're learning the process. So I think, yeah, it's and it's so good to talk to both of you, because I'm seeing from an academy framework, while I was possibly at Cognizant long years, which we used to follow for capability development
Yeah.
and the multi-country capability development and building talent versus your DAO powered learning, where and there is no right or wrong answer, right? I mean, everything will evolve, and some industries will skew towards DAO versus some industries will still remain possibly to an extent of academy framework, but and totally depends on who are you serving, who are your customers, which industry do you come from. But it's so good to hear from both of you. So we are covering the entire spectrum of learning frameworks. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. Thank you. All right. So the next question, Aditi, I think you've covered a little bit of it, talking about your, the academy-based approach that's working for you all. Um, if you can share maybe certain successful talent development initiatives, uh, the, because see, in your industry also, there's so much of technology
Yeah,
adoption that
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so it's kind of continuously changing. So, what are some certain amount of talent development initiatives that you think has helped your organization and the businesses to adapt to this change?
Right. So, one of the things I wanted to bring forth in the discussion is that while academy framework is the framework under which we
Correct.
operate, but we have it's been almost 3 years now, 3 to 4 years, we have completely moved to um, and on I mean a model which is I mean, I'm sure because there are a lot of people here in technology driven and it is not going to be new for them, but at the same time in our kind of traditional organizations we have completely moved from to anytime anywhere learning, which is we have the our academy is completely hosted online,
Mm.
which means that when I say online, we have there are several gamified learning initiatives that we have launched last 2 to 3 years. One of them, which a recent campaign that I can quite proudly mention, is the superhero learning campaign, which is built on the whole concept of how learning gives us the superpowers to attend to our jobs. And
Correct.
the whole and not only did we link it up to a skills benchmark index for the entire organization, we have
Mm.
now some kind of metrics by which we can say how our organization is navigating or moving towards the desired skills index for the entire set of people or set of the organization. So, for example, in technology, we have multiple technology departments. We have
Mhm.
multiple requirements of different varied skills. In on the
Mhm.
contra, you have a regulatory department where the requirements are completely different. So,
Yeah.
what we have done is we've broken up all of this into various skills, and we have done a blended learning approach to ensure that and the learning gets curated and to each and every employee in the organization, including the last person standing right down in the field, who's
Mhm.
is probably in the physical market.
Mhm.
So that's how we have been able to shift and adapt to, and it has worked well for us. And
Sure.
one of the things that we have also done is we have completely empowered our people to take charge of their own learning.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
they have their own way of tracking. They have their own way of exploring, and that's what and co-creation of the entire development plan.
Awesome. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, thanks for sharing these lights. I mean, absolutely. And I think more and more, learning as and more we take it as our own owners versus being a push from, the leaders. The more effective it is for the learners. Yeah, and you take it with much more sincerely and do it well. So Purva, and I'm the point is, I'm not saying that traditional industries will not need it, but then everybody needs it, but especially around Web3 and
Yeah.
you being part of startup ecosystem.
Mhm.
Continuous learning culture and being able to pace up with the changes, it kind of goes hand in hand. So how do you, what are your insights on how do you help foster that in an organization like yours?
Yeah, so interesting. Innovation is constant, and you're right, new skills emerge rapidly, and like from a future development of talent per se, it's both
Mm-hmm.
exciting and challenging times. So, in terms of navigating these challenges successfully, I think a few things which, like Aditi was also mentioning, some of the basic practices, like you were also speaking about human centered
Yeah.
design philosophy and all those principles, they are the bedrock of any successful talent management kind of setup that you put, irrespective of whether it's technology or any industry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think a few things like agile learning frameworks, so uh, setting up frameworks that prioritize adaptability, embracing continuous learning models, just in time learning. So these days for technology, they're leveraging hackathons
Correct.
extensively, right? So
Yeah.
what is a hackathon? It's like a practical environment, a simulated environment that you create where you're solving real world problems.
Correct. Correct.
Similarly, it encourages cross-functional collaboration because that's what we have to do to foster the whole culture of knowledge sharing and skill transfer. Depending on just yourself is not enough. So how do you build together? That becomes
Mm-hmm.
extremely
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Innovative incentive structures, they become extremely important because, the more I'm working with Gen Zs, the more I'm realizing that this is one of the biggest things that I had to actually shift my approach to and make a lot of changes in my own thought process because
Mm-hmm.
it's just not about, rewards anymore. It's just not about okay, I do this and I learn and that's it, right? So people are far more aware in these worlds. They are very clear about what they want. So continuously keeping them motivated, and especially the employees who are tasting success a
Mm-hmm.
lot earlier, like with Web3, you would see, they are very young. Even the CEOs, the founders, most of the companies are being led by very young individuals who
Yeah.
set up very successful companies, right?
Mm.
So how do you keep them motivated? How do you still build some structures that would allow that learning to happen, at the same time keep them really excited about what's ahead? That's a constant challenge. I would love to hear views from all of you guys as well on it, but this is something which I'm constantly struggling with. And I think more and more collaboration with industry experts and flexible skill pathways, I think things like that are the kind of approaches that we are trying to take. So, net,
Yeah.
it boils down to cultivating a growth mindset within the organization culture, creating like an entrepreneurship sort of an environment. And we are, in fact, even highlighting successful entrepreneurs who left our company to start up their own ventures. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is what the future is, and we are trying to kind of embrace it and
Yeah.
highlight people who are doing it sooner than later. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, no, yeah, quite a few good points that you have mentioned. And prior to that, also, Aditi, I mean, and it kind of alludes into my next question, which I kind of struggle and figure out how to do it is, see, there are, when we talk about success of doing all of whatever we are doing, right? So there are certain internal metrics. I think, Aditi, you also mentioned about your skill index and the matrices that you're measuring. So there are certain input and process metrics that are there to share, or to let us know that okay, we are possibly doing some things right. What I struggle always is on the impact metrics, right? And the impact metrics, when I talk about and the ROI of any of these talent development initiatives, it is not the net promoter score that you're getting, just after it. That kind of is a good to have pulse check, but nothing beyond pulse check, right? So whenever I think about a successful, and these all kind of training interventions or talent development interventions takes time to assimilate and show an organization that things are done at the right way. There are a lot of indicators for it. So when you think about the ROI and the return on investment on the talent development initiatives that you design, in your organizations, and you think about from an impact perspective, how do you think about impact? I mean, and if you can more stress on the outcome impact versus the process and the input success criteria, how does that work? I mean, are the learners, the end learners, how are they learning, doing things differently? How is the organization benefiting? Just share some of your thoughts. It's not easy, but then, yeah, just wanted to have a conversation with both of you.
Hmm.
Anybody can
Interesting.
pick up,
So,
yeah. Uh,
um,
Yeah, a
Purva,
classic. Yeah, go ahead, Aditi.
yeah, I just wanted to share a few points. Actually, the impact, when we talk about impact and the returns, I would think it to be, we need to look at it from what the organization needs, and what may be an impact for my organization may not be an impact for Purva's organization, right?
correct.
But
Yeah,
saying this, some of the large measures, or rather the, some of the areas which you really can assess whether you have, at least in our kind of organizations, are that, how, how, what is the talent fungibility, which means that how quickly can you fill an opportunity within the organization without having to look outside. Okay, I would
hmm,
look at that as one of a key impact in our kind of industry. Another thing that I would want to really look at is, another way to define my success criteria very clearly is, if I have already mentioned that about the skills benchmark index, right? Or the skills index for the organization, and how has it progressed?
hmm,
So if the large part of the segment of my population was in a proficient in the critical skills that are required, like for example, data visualization, or in Python, or some of these areas, have they moved from proficient to advanced, is what I'm looking at. So, and if yes, then, so these are some of the impact that I would, because all this have an impact even on the outcome of the job, right?
correct.
So
Yes,
Yeah,
this is what
absolutely.
I would want to mention.
very
Got
interesting, Aditi. Thanks for sharing that. I think I have a couple of things to add to this because I think we are now trying to make peace with the fact that the outcome for every learner, while we can define it, yes, metrics are important because what gets measured gets done, and I'm all in favor for it because it's a classic battle, right? You're investing money, and you would definitely want to see returns when you're running these programs or initiatives, etc. But I think over time, with many years in talent development, it's also about looking at what or how can you convince the people who are in charge of deciding whether or not to sponsor, that every learner journey is going to be different, and
right.
therefore are we at a stage where the outcomes can be drafted in that way, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
we are far away from that right now,
Yeah,
but
we are.
the reality is that just carpet bombing, or maybe saying that X percentage movement, Y% reduction in attrition, and X% increment in salaries. We all know all those factors are
Mhm.
not the true indicators. Sometimes
Correct.
it can also be about, even if your employees have left beyond, let's say, the program, etc., are they still continuing to be successful where they are? Did they end
Right.
up building something if you were driving a culture of innovation? I think I have seen people trying to get there now, which is very encouraging. And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
at least it allows us to have these dialogues early on and
Right.
define the initial few outcomes which we can all agree to. And slowly and gradually, it's all about tracking and
Yeah.
looking at how are we progressing. I think I know it's a very, uh,
No, it's
kind of,
complex. It's not easy.
yeah,
It's
it's
very, very
complex.
complex. Yeah. But I think, when I think about it, I think having the mindset to even start with one of those measures and start
Yeah,
evolving from there. It's just that
exactly.
being intentional to do the right thing from an impact perspective. Because
Oh, that
all of us, because
matters.
of lack of time, it's because it's a very difficult measure. we try to get to the easy measures of NPS or whatever, right? I mean, as you
Yeah,
said,
that's
how
true.
many attrition or retention for that matter. I mean, let us be positive. So
Yeah,
retention and maybe
correct.
the revenue increase or bottom line decrease, etc. But yeah, we possible to evolve as an industry, and more people collaborate and understand. Maybe we'll come out with the evolving good things. We're almost at the closure. So anybody in the audience would want to ask any question, please raise your hand so that we can let you in. You can ask questions to Aditi and Purva. But yeah, please feel free to do that. I will let you in. My possibly the last question to both of you would be, given the wealth of experience that both of you have across industries, what would be your advice in case we have business leaders and HR leaders listening to it? Any advice that you would want to give them on how they in their roles can evolve to ensure they become great leaders to help organizations adapt to changes?
Interesting.
Okay,
Um,
before that, I think
yeah.
Rohit has a question. Rohit, let me allow you to speak. Yes, Rohit, you're in.
Yeah, hi, hi. So, thank you so much for this insightful session. First of all, I was listening from last 20-25 minutes,
Great.
and my question is like as you know, technology.
I lost
I think
him.
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
he had a background
Oh,
noise, so it's okay.
yeah.
okay, yeah.
So
Continue.
sorry, so sorry. There is a technical glitch. So actually, my
I think he's constantly getting some background noise. He has to go
hello.
to a quiet
Yep.
place.
You may want to type in. Is there a way that they can
Yeah,
type in
yeah.
the
So
code?
sorry, so sorry.
Let me type
Like
it.
my question is like how we can involve ourselves with the AI technology. Like right now in the terms of AI technology, we are like there are many multiple applications that we are using in AI in our HR perspective. So can you just tell me like how we can involve with the AI so that yeah, or we can do any courses related to AI so we can involve ourselves with the AI technology itself in HR terms.
So, Rohit, are you an HR professional in Reliance at Reliance Jio?
Yeah.
Okay, great, great, great. Anybody,
Sure.
Aditi, Purva, you want to take a minute?
I think I can share a few examples and then, just let you know as to how I do it, Rohit. Okay, so first of all, a roadmap to navigate the transformation. Get yourself familiarized with what's out there, what's happening in HR, and how is AI changing HR. So, like, a lot is happening on the automated recruitment side. AI-driven applicant tracking systems is known to everybody, right? So, the AI algorithms and how they kind of analyze resumes, identify top candidates. There's a big scope in the automated recruitment bucket. So there's not a one size fit all that you do this AI course and you become like an expert in AI and HR. There might be quite a few, but I'm at least, that's not how I learn. It's also about which space within HR. HR is a very broad based space. So, which space
Sure.
within HR is your pain point in your organization, right? And then you go deep, just like you do white paper research and stuff like that. You kind of go look at the experts in the market and the companies who are bringing in such tools. That's the biggest learning platform. Like, I've always learned the most when I'm interacting with people who've developed some solutions and they are trying to sell it to you. I mean, go on a call with them and you'll see, like they'll kind of run a crash course for you in 15 minutes, and that's a sales call, isn't it? So that's one. Second is the whole chatbot thing for employee engagement. So integrating AI powered chatbots. And I know a lot of our companies, like when I was in Genpact as well, this was introduced like at least 6, 7 years ago. So chatbots for employee engagement, predictive analytics for talent management. These days, there are a lot available even for the diversity side of things. So there's a lot happening, my friend. You just need to go and, kind of identify that one thing and go deep and meet up with a lot of people who are building or bringing on such technologies to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Purva.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit, for your question. Yeah, and I agree. And now I think the information also is kind of curated in a way. I mean, at least go to ChatGPT to get started off. to see the breadth of information you want in a particular space, and then you narrow down on those individual organizations or people to kind of see where you want to go. At least the first information layering and packaging is easy with ChatGPT, definitely. All right, great. I think we had somebody else who had put their hands up, but I don't see him now, Sabzar. But yeah, we can continue with the advice question, Purva and Aditi. And if he comes back or anybody else has a question, please raise your hands.
Sure.
All right.
So, my message to the young HR or my young self would actually be that, you know, I think it's very powerful that if we realize that in our hands lies the power to shape a workforce that not only survives but actually thrives in the ever-changing dance of progress. Okay, so we should take it seriously and at the
Correct.
same time not shy away from getting our hands dirty, understanding the business, and literally, if possible, getting to the ground level and really seeing, what is their day in the life, because that kind of gives you a lot of insight, and then your role as HR actually can be a far more meaningful, and also show them how it's done. Take risks yourself. If you have to survive an agile world, you can't be sitting at one place and just doing the same thing for 20 years. I mean, that's the hard lesson that I learned through my career. So you have to take risks and be bold. I think that's the only message that I would like to leave the audience with. So
Yeah.
pausing over to you, Aditi.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank.
Pooja. I think I completely echo Purva to this extent that one thing I would have probably, I think all HR people, or when they start their career at a very early age, needs to at least do one um, line function role, which is non-HR, be it in business or be it in largely, I would say, marketing, sales, something which gives a complete customer centric visibility of what is happening of to the end user of the product of your company. I think that is important, because only because why do we exist as HR? Because one of the things, and if we go back to the point that Mahua had asked me, that what is the impact? How will you measure an impact if you don't even know what the end user is actually wanting? Your end user is ultimately the customers who use the company's products. So I think that I would really think is extremely important for all, and I think it should be built in into the career framework, career development of all
Yeah.
human resource professionals.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, so true. I mean, I so much echo, and it's very interesting from my own life because in my 18 years of corporate career, I was never in HR. I was always part of the business. So be it technology, be it consulting, I was always on the other side. So when I had to do my startup, I came on the other side. So and it was always a question, oh, you were never in HR. I said no, and that's the reason I like to do on the other side here because I was always on the other side, on the receiving end, and possibly hence it gives me a lot of perspectives to even understand this side now. And it's so true. It's and not only in HR, the way you said, Aditi, the doing a function line function role and getting into HR. I also believe now after a long corporate career, getting into entrepreneurship. I also believe, starting from Purva's point of view, each one of us should have careers across startup ecosystem and corporate career. The cultures are so different, the kind of learnings are so different. Some of them have accelerated learning path, and then you come back and possibly can contribute a much more in structured corporate culture. I don't know, Purva, if you have seen that
Yeah,
between Genpact and your this one. I believe the things are super different, and you need both the flavors to contribute and be your best self.
that is so true. Well
You know.
said, Marwa.
Yeah, it is kind of really. First of all, thank you, ladies, Aditi and Purva, for being here today,
Thank you.
giving your 5 minutes of your time. It was very interesting, given both your industries. They're like absolute contrasts. So we kind of heard about certain traditional, from academy framework to anytime, anywhere learning to the ninja culture that Purva you have talked about and the DAO powered learning. So it was super interesting and through the platform and being part of the Star and Meet gives us a lot of insights from an industry perspective as we build our solutions and we partner and co-create with enterprises. Thank you for everybody who's still around and listening to us. Really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you, Purva and Aditi
Yeah,
again.
Thank
and a note of
you.
thanks
Bye
to my
bye.
colleagues who are logged in, having my back. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you listening
Nice.
in. Take
Nice.
care. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.